First, just about everybody in the country's got a smartphone. Spending a day without going online is unfathomable to almost all of us. Tech rules our lives to an ever greater degree. But the so-called digital frontier is getting fenced in. It's not quite as broad as we were told it would be. A handful of companies now have almost total control over what we can say, do, or see on the internet. Control of almost all human information. Consider Facebook. About half the country uses it as a primary news source. Millions and millions of people understand the world through Facebook. But Facebook is not a neutral host. It has a political agenda. Earlier this year, Facebook altered its algorithms for what news stories its users see, and the results, conclusively, have been devastating for conservatives online. Breitbart, the news site, has basically lost about 30% of its traffic since that happened. PragerU down 32%. Daily Caller is down. Rare closed its doors. Some reports say IJR is on the brink of collapse because of it. Fox, by the way, is down too. Meanwhile, purveyors of approved elite opinion, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, they've been unaffected by this. What is this? Well, it's an act of ideological warfare, and it's far more worrying than anything that Cambridge Analytica has done or is accused of doing. Floyd Brown founded westernjournal.com as another site hit big by the changes at Facebook, and he joins us tonight. Floyd, this is not just a fever dream on the right that Facebook is somehow singling out, in effect, conservative sites. The numbers are really clear. How is this working?
Well, it's very clear, and I would say that Facebook has broken its trust with the end user. You know, one of the things I always liked about Facebook and admired about Facebook was that it was optimized to the end user. You have about 1.5 million followers on Facebook, Tucker, and the truth is as one of those followers, I expect to get news and information that you find interesting and you decide to share.
Right.
That's a social network. It's no longer a social network when Mark Zuckerberg and the other elites in Silicon Valley decide what you should get, the information that you should consume, and really decide from on high what news you should have.
How do we get to a place where one company, or along with Google, really two companies, control all online media, both political companies, and without any oversight at all by anybody, can just shut down sites they disagree with? How do we get to that place?
Well, I think that early on, Facebook did a fabulous job of letting people basically curate their own content. We all went online and we liked different people. We followed Donald Trump. We followed, people in the news that we liked. We followed publications that we liked. And so we were all of a sudden getting, great content that we all wanted to follow it and consume it. And so as a result of that, Facebook went through the roof. But now Facebook's having trouble with engagement because it's not optimized to the end user anymore. It's now optimized to the thought police. And that's a big change that's it's hurting Facebook, but it's also hurting discourse in America. And it also, Tucker, and this is, I think, what people need to understand on Capitol Hill, is it has big implications for upcoming elections and really the ability of America to make good decisions.
It's another form of social control. Of course. Floyd, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Well, there is still a widespread belief out there, particularly on the right, that business interests are basically conservative. Now, you could argue about whether that was ever true. It's certainly not true now. The opposite is true. The ideological gap between the leaders of America's most powerful corporations and, say, the Democratic Party is basically non-existent. They agree on everything. Now, having failed at the ballot box in 2016, the left is using other means to make the outcome of those elections irrelevant, in fact. Nowhere is this clear than on the subject of the Second Amendment. There is a constitutional right to bear arms. It's in the Bill of Rights. Number two, in most states, there's not a lot of enthusiasm for restricting the Second Amendment. Voters don't want it. Doesn't matter. The left is now colluding with large companies to roll back your rights to bear arms without any legislation at all. No public debate. They're just doing it. For example, on the website Reddit, the page for gun deals has been banned. Can't go there anymore. On YouTube, Google has banned the postings of videos that link to gun sellers or that simply promote the purchase of guns or accessories like magazines. They've also banned videos demonstrating how to attach gun accessories. Already popular YouTube firearm channels have been banned, driven off, or demonetized. You can't find them. You can't get the information anymore. But the most amazing example of this comes from Citibank. Now, that company announced today it will require all of its clients to block gun sales to those under 21 to bar the sale of bump stocks or high-capacity magazines. You may remember Citigroup because about 10 years ago, they got 45 billion of your dollars, taxpayer dollars, to get bailed out. That's why they still exist. Now they turn around and work to undermine the constitutional rights of the taxpayers who bailed them out. We called Citibank today to ask if they sent a representative over to explain how this works exactly, but they refuse because they're cowards. This is happening over and over. More companies are participating, and they're taking action on more issues. The fear the government might remove your rights is becoming quaint. Big tech and big finance are doing it for them already. With no public debate, they just do it, and tough luck if you don't like it. Larry Keane, president of the National Shooting Sports Foundation, he joins us tonight. Larry, thanks a lot for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having us, Tucker.
This is one of those changes that I don't think anybody anticipated was coming, and it's not exactly clear what the parameters are. YouTube is banning what?
Well, they're banning any advertising or videos involving firearms. So it's a little unclear and it's very vague about the scope. So, for example, are they going to ban videos of teaching you how to reload ammunition, which, as you know, is very common in the United States, or firearm safety education videos that show people how to use firearms? So it's very troubling that YouTube would censor information. As a media entity, you would think that they would be a little bit more sensitive to the consequences of censorship. So very troubling what they're engaged in.
But more than just a media entity, I mean, this is not like Fox News, the Washington Post saying we're not going to cover something. I mean, YouTube is the public square, in effect. They have a massive share of online videos. If they shut down a whole category, then it's kind of over, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, they're like it's the free market of ideas, except they have a monopolistic power, and they're putting a finger on the scale and deciding what information Americans are allowed to see. So they're suppressing First Amendment rights, and at the same time, they're suppressing the Second Amendment rights by preventing people from gathering or acquiring information about a completely lawful activity. And firearms are protected by the Constitution of the United States. So it's deeply troubling, and I think that the public is going to be very upset about it. And we're certainly going to be talking to members of Congress to have oversight hearings to find out exactly what these social media sites are doing and how they're abusing their monopolistic power on information to advance a liberal anti-gun agenda.
Republicans seem to think this is the example of the free market, but there's nothing free about this market at all. It's controlled. Larry, thank you. I appreciate that.
Pleasure to spend time with you. Thank you.
Antoine Seawright is founder and CEO of Blueprint Strategy, and he joins us tonight. Antoine, thanks for coming on. I'm sure you agree with the aims of Citibank and of YouTube and of Facebook, and I mean, you share the same politics as most CEOs of these companies. But does it feel strange for you as someone on the left to find yourself encouraging corporate power shutting down ordinary people? The left was never for that. Why are they for that now?
Well, before I'm on the left, before I'm anything political, Tucker, I'm a human being. And what I do know is I know what it's like to, I know, but let me finish. I know what it's like to have to bury someone who you love due to being killed in a church in Charleston, as I experienced almost 3 years ago. I also know what it feels like to see a do-nothing Congress and elected leaders across this country, both at the national and local level, not act after we've had these senseless shootings, mass shootings we've had in this country. So I appreciate the courage of the business community, the business leaders who have stepped up to say, you know what, if Congress in Washington, D.C. does not want to do anything, if General Assemblies across the country do not want to do anything, then let's lead by example. Let's be on the right side of history and do something that the people we serve want to do. Because the truth of the matter is,
so you agree with our corporate masters that democracy is stupid, and why would you wait for actual voters to weigh in here?
I am not, Tucker. I am not going to use the language of corporate. I'm not. Absolutely, I'm not going to use the language of
elite
corporate
opinion.
Masters. Are you going to let me finish, or are you going to continue?
No, I'm just asking you. I guess you don't. We don't believe in democracy anymore.
You have to let me. Are you gonna let me finish, or are you gonna continue to talk loud and think that that's like the thing to do? Here's the bottom line. I appreciate these people for having courage, stepping up to the plate, and acting on something that the people who occupy their businesses want. 70% of people in this country Democrat and Republican want something done in the name of gun
Let me
reform.
ask you a question. All right, I let you hold on. Slow down. Whoa, Antoine, okay, so now you're happy now that the unelected functionaries at the world's largest companies happen to agree with you. They're doing something that you want. But what if they took a position that you're not in favor of? What if they said, I don't know, pick something. Black Lives Matter is bad. We're not going to let any more Black Lives Matter videos on YouTube. We're not, Citibank won't process any payment to Black Lives Matter. You'd say, well, wait a second. You control all credit cards, you control all videos, and you shut this down. Maybe you might feel differently. Can you see why there's perhaps a flip side to this?
Of course I can, and that has happened in many instances. But here's the beauty about living in the United States of America. We have the ability to disagree with people who may not agree with us. And the truth be told, if you don't agree with YouTube, if you do not agree with Dick's Sporting Goods or Walmart or any of these corporations who have acted in this manner of trying to reduce another incident from happening, then don't shop with them. Do not use their products. Don't buy them. That's the answer.
Let me ask you, so if I don't agree with Google, which has a complete monopoly over all human information, it has a 90% monopoly on search, for example. So everything we know basically comes from Google. If I don't agree with them, I don't really have a lot of places to go. I mean, nothing against DuckDuckGo. As a liberal, does this level of corporate power, this concentration of power in the hands of a very small number of rich people, that doesn't bother you at all?
Well, I'm not a liberal. I think I'm Antoine C. Wright, a person who has a political opinion, number one.
Does it bother you?
Number two, I agree with corporations who are stepping up to the plate, answering the call that some of our elected officials do not have the courage to do.
Could there be a downside to settling problems when the richest people in the world get together and say, we're going to impose this on a society? That's better than having elected officials vote to do something through the democratic process? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying to you, Tucker, is the fact that we are 3 years from Charleston, 6 months from Vegas, a month or so from Parkland, and I don't know how long from some of the other mass shootings we've had, and nothing has been done in the name of trying to change the conversation. So therefore, Tucker, you know as well as I know that if a small group of people get together, that number will grow and something can be done. And I think that's what's happening.
When a small group of billionaires decides to shut down speech,
corporations are going to be on the right side of history.
applauds. Okay, yeah, we'll see.